Well, hello, and welcome once again to the Far From Normal Radio Show. I'm your host, Jay Moss, and as always, I've got my brother, Mr. Bud Vino. Bud, how are you doing this evening?
Yo, it's going to be an awesome show. My brother from another mother, Jay Money Moss, Tuesday, May 21st, 2019, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 7 o'clock Central, and we've got some people that are on Cali time tonight, Jay. An incredible show lined up, my brother. As always, almost 3 years running, my brother Jay. It is a pleasure, brother. Happy Tuesday, pal.
Awesome stuff. And we got an amazing guest tonight here, and we're going to bring him in here very, very soon. We do have some amazing good news for you out there as well. Randy Davis is at home. He is resting. He's doing fine. And we will have our guests say the inevitable, rev it up at the end of our broadcast here when we have him on. But I think it's due time that we bring in our guests, actually. If you could go ahead and turn on your camera here and unmute, and I'd like to go ahead and introduce to you Mr. Sam I Am Mason. Sam, how are you doing this evening, brother? Can you hear us, Sam?
I got you now. I got a little bit of delay, guys. I appreciate you guys having me on the show, man. Thank you for inviting me out.
Absolutely. Sam is an amazing actor, writer, producer, director out there. He's done some amazing work with horror films, and it's right up Mr. Bud Vino's genre there. So
absolutely, Jay.
Yeah, just great stuff. But not only that, but Sam, you've gone through the family court. You've gone through a history, and you overcome addiction. You've overcome abuse in your background. And I think that it ties in greatly with what we do with the movement. I think that there are a lot of people out there that really need to hear some of the stories of what you've been through in your life and how you've overcome. And I think that it would be a great thing to basically open the mic up to you here shortly. And I know Bud wants to say something ahead of time as well. And I want to thank you for being on.
Like I said, it's an honor for me to be on your guys' show. We've been friends for a little while now via Facebook, and it's a pleasure to be able to reach out and connect with guys, especially with your guys' cause. Like you said, I come from a broken home. A lot of alcoholism, addiction, and that kind of stuff in my background. I have, come out of the gutters, so to speak. So for me to be able to give you guys my support, is truly an honor. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you. And Bud, I got you muted there a little bit.
See, we traded places there, Jay. I muted, you unmuted, I muted. First of all, yeah, I want to preface this. Sam's one of those guys, Jay. There's those people you find sometimes you just connect with. And Sam and I one night connected. We talked for hours back and forth, and we've maintained a great relationship. He's a very authentic. What you see is what you get. Straightforward, awesome man, awesome father. Honored isn't the word. I couldn't be more excited. And Allie knew I was tickled this morning. I think that's who we're having on. And I told her, she always thinks, "Oh, your little friend." She always thinks it's cute. So but it's an amazing thing. We're excited, Sam. I couldn't be more excited. Thank you, brother, for taking the time. You've got an amazing.
Absolutely.
Hey, man, and like Bud, said, him and I have formed a great relationship. Talking back and forth fairly regularly since we became friends. So when I talked to him this morning, everything fell into place, and here we are. So I do appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing that we really want to talk to you about, obviously, is you've done a film called Normal Terror. But yeah. I think we want to maybe kind of replace that with, let me see if I can share this here if it'll actually share. Far from normal terror. That might be a better title.
There it is. Yes.
Right? Hey, that works, man. I like that.
Well, first of all, we always say on the show, Jay, and Sammy and I have talked privately too about things happening organically. So the irony in the normal terror title, I actually did that superimposing of the Far From, and I gave it to Jay, and I said, you got to share that and rib him a little bit on the.
Nice.
Well, we'll see. So, we've already got the sequel plan. That's what it is.
Right. So, but I will say that only one correction is that Normal Terror is still in production. So we're still working on getting that film finished up.
Hey, you never know. That's how Rocky started out. We could have part 6, 7. You never know.
Right. Hey, you know what? If I can become one of those iconic horror franchises, I would be thrilled.
I would as well. I mean, that's a lot of money that comes along with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you this too, and I'll give Sam some plugs here. And he did some work the other day, and it was on a clown movie. And I know Sammy, and I like Sammy, and I was freaked out. So again, I can't wait for that too. He's got a lot of things on the burner right now, and on top of everything, as I said, he's a great man, and I know he's a great father, and that's one of the things even initially he bragged about. And how could we not love that, Jay? So again, it all came together perfectly. And Jay, I'll let you take it away, and then we'll roll from there.
Absolutely. I think what I'm going to do is let Sam talk about a little bit about your abusive upbringing, because growing up in an environment like that, I think that it really plays into a lot of different things. It plays into how we become parents. It plays into a lot of maybe the misconceptions as well. Okay, just because you may have grown up in an abusive background, it doesn't mean that you're going to become abusive in your future as well. So I definitely want to open the mic up for you on that.
Well, I mean, it started as young as I can remember. And even, every time I go and I see my grandmother, I hear stories about how I was such a recluse when they came and got me. My mom had got sent to jail, and my grandparents came and got me from Sacramento, Stockton, or something like that when I was about 2 or 3 years old. And, it was the stories I hear was that, it must have been an absolutely horrific experience, because anytime anybody would knock on their door or show up, I would literally run and hide in a corner and, sit in a fetal position. So luckily I don't remember those memories. But I was molested as a young child. I do have that knowledge and that experience as well. But growing up we grew up racing off-road. My stepdad was the one who raised me. He was with me since I was about 6 months old. Him and my mom got together, and there was a lot of trials and tribulations. She did a lot of things, that made him drink, and he drank because she did a lot of things. It was that vicious cycle that generally happens in an alcoholic abusive home. And so for me, there was, still a lot of that verbal and emotional damage and abuse that was going on. And every so often, I'm not trying to take anything away from my dad. Once he did get sobered up, and he did have some very good qualities about him. He was a great man. But at the time, it didn't seem all that great all the time. But that was part of the lifestyle of racing off road. And in the film industry at that time, he was a precision driver. He worked on a lot of old, 70s and 80s TV shows, the mechanics of the kit cars and stuff like that. Like Hardcastle McCormick, for instance, he built that car. So, the car that they call the Coyote, he built the engine for that and did a lot of other stuff and, did some of the precision driving stunts in that show. So, and having that background, it was really cool at times to be able to go through and experience that. But then at the same time, on the backside of that, when he would get done with something, he was always drinking. You know, so I mean, I remember, you know, him and my mom fighting, and I remember her busting him in the head with an iron skillet.
Oof.
I mean, I remember her busting a Popov vodka bottle over his head, and I remember watching the life drain out of his eyes as he got knocked out, and the blood come pouring down his face, and he just slid down the wall. We packed up our shit and we got out. You know, so I had a lot of those types of experiences, you know, very early on. You know, and one of the things I tried to do as a parent was, you know, because I did have issues with my temper. I did have issues with, you know, with my alcoholism and my addictions and, you know, and those kinds of things. But I really tried to veer away from not hitting my kids as much as possible. You know, there's been, I can count on one hand how many times I've smacked my son in the mouth. You know, and it's actually been in his teen years over the last, you know, couple of years that I felt that it necessary to pop him in the mouth. You know, I generally don't, you know, approve of that. And you know, I'm upset at myself and carry the guilt and the shame from that. But at the same time, you know, depending on the circumstances, you know, and of course, this is just my justification of it. Nothing ever makes it right to hit a child.
Right.
You know, but, you know, at the same time, I was frustrated. I'm still dealing with, you know, with my own things, you know, financial insecurities and, you know, and the stability factors. And, you know, and I do get frustrated as a parent. You know, I mean, kids don't come with a handbook. You know, and so having the struggles that I've had in my life, you know, sometimes I do let my temper get the better of me. You know, so I have popped him in the mouth, and I have popped him in the mouth for a couple of reasons. You know, and most, you know, I don't draw blood or anything like that, but you know, it's a quick pop, let him know, you know, at least from my point of view is, you know, what you're doing is wrong. I want you to understand what you're doing is wrong. And, you know, I'm sorry that I felt the need to have to do this. But you have to understand where I'm coming from. You have to understand that you are a child and I am your parent. You know, my friend, you know, my son is my friend. He is, you know, he is my best friend. You know, but at the same time, I'm a parent first, you know, and he does understand that I'm a parent first. And, you know, luckily he doesn't hold those things against me. It's not like I'm, you know, beating him constantly. I'm not, you know, obsessively abusive towards him like what I went through. You know, it's just a couple of necessities that, you know, I felt at the time were the right thing.
Right. Yeah. But go ahead.
Well, I think, yeah, I think, you know, we all have these sort of parenting styles that are different. I know it reminded me of the late great Maya Angelou. Jay, I've said it before. You did then what you knew how to do. When you knew better, you did better. So right. I think it's in knowing Sammy, I call him Sammy the Bull, my man Sam, and getting to know him better. I can tell you, it's like it is with all of us. It's a forever sort of process. You're learning every day. So when you learn new ways and they feel better for you, that's what you do. And I don't begrudge different parenting styles. I don't physically hit my children, but that's just my style. But I don't say there's not always sometimes a time and a place for it. Again, you know, but again, different parenting styles are what they are. I think a lot of it, my point to that is you try and do better than what you had if you're enlightened enough, instead of complaining about what you didn't have. I think that's what a lot of us do when we're younger. And if you're smart, what you do is you say, okay, well, I'm going to be everything that I never had. You know, I'm going to go ahead and take everything that I was sad about not getting. So, and I can tell you that's what Sammy's done.
And I would say I don't necessarily condone hitting your child in the mouth, but I will say this. When I was probably 10 years old, I mouthed off my mom and I got popped across the mouth, and I can guarantee you it was the last time I mouthed off to my mom. So the food that was in my mouth was then on the wall.
Right.
Well, I can tell you right now that one of the things, Sammy and I found a lot of similarities between each other, and one of those is that we were raised by a stepfather since we were 6 months old, you know, for the most part. And I can tell you right now, and I don't agree with it, but yeah, I think I I disagreed with my old man once, and he knocked me on my ass. It was more than a
Yep.
house slap; it was a punch, and I went down. And so,
Okay.
I don't agree with that. But my point is, it was a different time,
Mhm.
and you have to understand too that again, sometimes there were abusive mentalities, but sometimes these things, the way my stepdad was and stuff, it wasn't like that. It was very much old school. Again, that was probably an extreme example,
Right.
which what he did wasn't right. But again, I would never. My goal too is I'd never make my child feel that way, that sort of humiliation. I'm not saying there's not room for
Right.
discipline, because as Sam said, I'm my kid's friend. People say I'm not your friend. I am, but there's a line. I'm also their old man. There's a respect level, and I can tell you, for the most part, I just have to glare at my kids, and they know exactly
Right.
what I'm talking about and what I'm saying to them when I do it. So
Right.
there are different styles. We're forever growing, and I can tell you right now, again, Sam's really come quite a long way from what he came from. So again, Sam, if I can ask you,
Yeah.
I know that we touched on your addictions and things, and we've talked on the show. I've said before, I think you do one of two things, because I really believe on some level, when you're kicked down enough, you die. Part of you
Mhm.
dies. I believe that, and it's either the part that fights or the part that doesn't fight. So,
Right.
and I truly know that you're one of those gentlemen who the part of him that didn't fight died. I'm not saying we don't still go through struggles, but what was it, Sam, in your life? I mean, I know we hear about all those theatrical sort of rock bottom moments, which a lot of times is a culmination of rock
Mhm.
bottom moments. But what was it for you that went boom, different now? It's all going different now. What was it?
You know, honestly, it was a multitude of events. You know, I had fallen away from God. And you know, I was pissed off at a God that I didn't believe in every day, because every day I was waking up and I was still in the same pain and the same horror and the same experiences that I was doing prior. And so what ended up happening for me was I was working for a subcontractor of Coca-Cola, and I was installing post-mix soda fountains at the time. And so, you know, like all the soda machines you see in like the fast food restaurants that you serve yourself, all that stuff, I was installing and maintaining those machines. And so for what it was for me was that I was about to lose my job. And God placed somebody in my path, that was in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And he saw the pain, the misery, and the hell that I was living in. And so what happened for me was that, you know, I was living in a company truck, a truck that was provided to me by the company. I was living in it downtown LA on Skid Row. And I was tired of living that way. And I was training him one day. We had a contract at Universal Studios. And so I was training him on, you know, what we had to do when we were at work. And most of the time it was, you know, still there?
Yeah, he's still there. Mhm.
Okay. But most of the time it was, I saw his page go blank for a second.
Yeah, yeah.
But, you know, most of the time it was, you know, we weren't really doing a whole lot. We weren't doing a whole lot, but, you know, he saw the pain and the misery that I was in. And he said, if I could tell you that there was a better way to live, would you accept it? And honestly, I really had to think about that. I didn't realize, you know, I had all this huge hole inside here, that I didn't know what to do with. I didn't know what caused it. I didn't know how it got there. I didn't know how to change it. And so it took me a couple of days, and he said, you don't have to answer right now, but he said, I guarantee you, if you give this program an honest shot and it doesn't work for you, I'll gladly refund every bit of your misery. And that was the one thing that he said that clicked in my head that made sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so a couple of days later, I actually called him up and I said, hey, is the offer still on the table? And at the time, he was living in a sober living house, run by a man who became my mentor. His name was Jim Pedrick. And Jim was an absolutely phenomenal man. He took me in not knowing me from Adam, didn't know who I was. Didn't matter that I hadn't shaved in 6-8 months. Didn't matter that, that I hadn't bathed in about 2 weeks. All that mattered to him was that I was willing to be sober to better myself and help others. And so that was the turning point for me. Was when he accepted me into his home, gave me a place to stay, and taught me how to live sober.
Right. So it was the act of kindness really that, someone reaching out their hand that really made this happen.
For no benefit to themselves other than they're helping somebody like somebody once helped them.
Right. Yeah. Go ahead, bud.
Jay, and that's so beautiful when you see that, because we talk about that all the time. What acts of kindness, even random acts of kindness, generosity, and love will do. That's not BS. I mean, when you actually make someone feel valued and valuable, because we all are, but we just forget it sometimes. We lose it. We believe some of the hype. When you actually make someone authentically feel important because they are, it's amazing to see what they can do. And when you light that fire under someone, it's so incredibly awesome. And it is what Sammy, to step back with some people, light it and watch it burn, watch them burn, and watch them get hot, watch them catch fire and start to believe in themselves and go, you know what? There's nothing I can't do. And that goes for Sammy and everybody else. Sam, I applaud you. Keep going.
Well, and that's one of the things that happened with me was that, that started a row of circumstances that led me to where I am today. Is that he showed me that I could be better, that I could do better, that I deserved better. Because I honestly didn't believe at that point in time that I deserved any better than what I was living. And I was mad at a God I didn't believe in for keeping me alive. I didn't understand that I had a purpose in life. And so what it did for me was that, and the crazy thing for me is that my dad got sober when I was 13. And so, for me, it was like, I didn't think that alcohol and the drugs were my problem. I didn't know what my problem was, but there was no way it could be the alcohol and the drugs. I'm not drinking or using that much. At least that's what I had convinced myself, because I was trying to fill up a hole inside of me with everything but me, everything that's in here. And so, what ended up happening was, they introduced me to a way to fill up that hole. And, and generally it's by helping another sick or suffering alcoholic or addict. Because at the end of my using, I was drinking 2 liters of Captain Morgan a night. And I was smoking an ounce of weed every 3 to 4 days by myself, and that was my routine.
Wow.
And a lot of people say, and don't get me wrong, CBD and medicinal marijuana have great purposes if used properly. I'm not one of the ones who is able to use it properly. Right. For me, I smoke weed like people smoke crack.
Yep.
Well, Jay, if I could, Jay, we've said this before too, and Sam, I know you'll agree, you're touching on this here, is anytime you're using anything to escape, I mean, the reality or pain, and so you don't have to address it, there's an issue. Right. Whenever you're doing, again, and I'm not condoning, I'm not saying, oh, if you don't, you can use whatever you want. What I'm saying is, you got to look at that and say, okay, if you keep blunting, no pun intended, or maybe there was. If you always blunt your pain, and you're doing that to blunt your pain, that's why, because that much bud in that short amount of time, I don't care who you are, you're going to be pretty blasted. So there's, and again, if you're going to look at that when you're doing things in excess, you obviously, Sammy, and you recognize it, have an excessive personality. That's a blessing and a curse, because I can tell you that's what, now that your mentality shifted, that's what's going to lead to a lot of your success, and has. But it's that same mentality, I know, that you got to keep balance. So, and you're finding that and you found that. So I applaud you for that. But definitely, anytime you're using something out there to really stop pain, because you can't do that, because it's always going to come back up. There's going to be a time you have to address it. Do it now.
Absolutely. I think, I think there's a lot of misconception out there. I think that there's a lot of people out there who are using marijuana and so they justify it. And then there's other people who are not using marijuana who may be the prude to the square, so to speak, that, you know, they're called, who always say that marijuana is a gateway drug. I don't think it's a gateway drug. I think it's a void filler. That's what I would call it. The void that's in your life, you're filling it with something that dulls the pain. And that could be marijuana, that could be hydrocodone, that could be fentanyl, opioid addiction, anything.
People use a lot of different things. People use relationships. People use food. People use money. They use stature. They use property. They use, their jobs. They use, nice clothes. They use a lot of different things to fill the same void. But ultimately, it goes back to the same thing, which is the 10 minutes, between your ears, right? The 10 inches between your ears right here. And that's where all of my problems begin and end, is right here in my head. Because when I get into that mentality and that, that anxiousness and that depression and all that other stuff, my head goes into a complete tornado, and I can't focus on a thought to the point where I don't want to get out of bed, no matter what my job is, no matter who I'm with, no matter what my responsibilities are. I convince myself that this is the worst thing in the world for me.
Right.
Well,
Exactly. And I think that's it.
Go ahead.
Mhm.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah, I
Greg.
was just going to say
Go ahead.
that was the thing that I think that makes a whole lot of sense to me, and I think will make a whole lot of sense to other people, is there are certain times in your life, and there are certain times and things that you're going through where people just don't feel comfortable in their own head or their own skin. And I think that that's what people need to work on, is don't find something or someone to complete you, because you complete you.
Oh, Jay, this is why I love my brother Money Moss, because this is the sort of thing, and he hit again. That couldn't be more perfect, because that's the root of it all. As you said, Sammy, right here, and Jay's talking about right here, and it's all encompassing, because that's the root of it. And Sammy, you mentioned the different voids we fill with different things, and it all goes back to that root issue of self-love and what you believe in and how much you believe in yourself. And as Jay said, never look for someone to validate or fill that void, because it's never going to be satisfying anyway when you're not, because you're always going to be worried about losing. And you mentioned God, whatever your belief is, you, Jay, I'll say that. What do they say? God lies within us all, right? God is in us all. And you've got to realize that you have the power. And when you realize that all the power lies within here, and as Sammy said, right here, then that's how you win. That's this quote unquote secret, right, Jay, that there isn't.
Yeah, that is the secret. There is no secret. What you envision your life to be, and what you and this has always been what was told to me, is if you can imagine it and you can dream it, and it's so real that you can hold it in your hand, you can make it happen. If you believe in it so much that you can see it, like if you're just holding your palm out there and you can see what your future is and what you want it to be, envision that dream. And now the only thing you have to do is find out, what steps do I need to take from where I'm at to where I need to be. And that makes all the difference in the world. And I think absolutely, I think you've done that in your life. And I'm going to give it over to Bud here real quick again.
Yeah, we're gonna let our guests go here for a minute. But again, Jay, you couldn't be more right. I want to give a shout out to Ed Bryans here in New Hampshire. Ed is someone, again. Ed and I have had numerous discussions. I tell people all the time, people out there, oh, that's BS what Jay said. Oh, what, you can just imagine it? It's not like it's a ding, right? Like a bewitched or whatever that is, wiggle your nose. But I'm telling you right now, it's the same thing as if you tell yourself you're garbage every day. Guess what you're going to turn into? Garbage. You're going to absolutely turn into garbage. It's the same thing. If you visualize, and it's also visualizing and acting and getting rid of all the negative and the naysayers. It doesn't matter what anyone says about your dream, about being ridiculous or stupid. These are all people that are afraid to what, Jay? Jump themselves. You envision, you keep doing it. It doesn't matter how dumb it looks to anyone. Again, Rocky 6, Jay, 2006 is how it looks to you. And that's a fact. And when you keep putting yourself there, as Jay said, see it, and it'll bring you along that path. It really will, Jay. We've seen it. And it's when you eliminate all the toxicity in your life and you keep focused on that goal, it's all tunnel vision, Jackson Robinson, and you focus on that finish. That's what you'll finish with, Jay.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not simple. I'll tell you, to envision something that you want to become is not a simple task. It's not like you can just hold your hand out there and envision, okay, this is what I want to be. This is who I want to become. This is what my life is going to be. That is not a simple task, because you have to be realistic in your goals, but you have to shoot for the moon at the same time. And
see, and I think what you just said right there, as far as, you know, realistic goals, is the biggest piece to that puzzle, because
right.
especially someone who comes from, you know, an abusive background like I did, you know, the alcoholism, the addiction, and fighting those demons, the biggest thing for me was those grandiose thoughts, because I go from depression to I'm going to rule the world.
Exactly.
Like that. You know,
Yeah,
and that's the biggest problem, is that, you know, I want to come out of it, you know, with such a stupor that I'm never going to go back again, you know, but I also have to create a realistic vision for what I want for myself. And that's the hardest part, is realizing what a real vision and real goal is.
Right. Exactly. And if
absolutely. Go ahead, Jay.
Oh, I was going to say the issue always has to be in your mind is this a realistic goal that I'm envisioning here within the palm of my hand? Is this a realistic goal? Because if I said I want to be president of the United States, okay, that might not be a realistic goal, because I'm 46 years old. At this particular point in time, I've not built a career up enough to become president of the United States. Could that happen? Possibly, yeah. And I could win the lottery tomorrow too. That's not probably going to happen either. But realistically, what are the steps? What do you need to do? Do I need to join a city council, become a senator, those kind of things, and build up that way?
There we go again, Jay. Segue me. Jay's reading my mind again. So what he's saying is great too, because that's what he's talking about, is taking steps, the baby steps to get you to that end goal. That's the hardest thing, is we all want that instant gratification, because when we know in our hearts we're capable of something, we want to just achieve it. We don't want all the BS. But again, as Jay said, you set those realistic goals day by day. And the other thing you got to remember is, and not just expect it, it's expect it totally, it's going to happen, is you're going to have to be able to adapt. Life is going to punch you in the mouth, as Les Brown says. It is. Yep. Your life is going to divert. You're going to have everything all planned out. Everything's all going to be perfect. You got this lined up. Everything's perfect. Life is great. It's wonderful. Then all of a sudden, bang, you jammed in the jaw. And you say, whoa, where'd that come from? Well, that's the way life works. You have to be prepared and know how to take that punch and take it and become stronger from it and counter it, Jay.
Absolutely. And we want to move on just a little bit here, because I know everybody's saying, okay, well, how are you all relating this to the movement? Okay. This case really with Sam relates to the movement, because you overcame all of these things in your life and you actually won custody of your kids. Is that correct?
That is correct. Now, my situation is a little bit different. You know, we didn't go through the court system. And so I fought for 10 years to get custody of my son back. You know, and I started the fight before I actually got sober, about 1.5 years, 2 years before I got sober. And there was about 6 years that I didn't have any contact with my son at all, which was extremely difficult. But, you know, and the same thing happened with my daughter. I had 13 years of no relationship or contact with my daughter. And, that's still a rocky relationship in itself, because of the amount of time that passed. And, she's a grown woman now. She's off at college doing her thing. She has her own life. So, I try not to talk about that too much, to respect her privacy. But with my son, basically got to a point where his mother called me up. She has multiple sclerosis. And she got to a point where, she felt that it was time for him to be with me. So it's another one of those things where I just continued doing the best that I could for myself. And that was a really hard thing for me to swallow and accept in sobriety, especially because I always use that as an excuse to get loaded. Well, I've had my kid taken from me. I don't know where he's at. I don't have a contact information. I haven't talked to him in a year. I haven't talked to him in 2 years. I haven't talked to him in 5 years. I haven't talked to him in 6 years. I get pictures here and there, but the contact and stuff like that, and so there was a lot of guilt and a lot of shame, but she called me up and, said, basically that it's time for you to be with Sammy. Would you be willing to do that? And I literally dropped everything I was doing. I dropped everything. I quit my job. I got rid of my stuff and did whatever it took. I moved up to Ocean Shores, Washington. That's where she was at the time, which is literally on the absolute end of the earth. And I moved up there. Well, actually, let me take that back a step. I took him on the truck with me for about a month and a half, and we reconnected and rebonded and had just an absolutely amazing time together. And really started rebuilding that relationship that had been lost. And when we got back on the truck, or when we got back to Ocean Shores, she had decided, in that time away from him that, it was probably best that, that I take over. And so she, verbally and in writing, granted me full custody of my son. She moved back to Texas with her family for medical care and that kind of thing to help her out with her medical condition. And my son came with me. And don't get me wrong, I've had him a little over 3 years. I got him my first official day with him when we dropped her off at the airport and we're together by ourselves was February 1st, 3 years ago. So, it's been 3 years and 2-3 months, something like that. But we've had a lot of struggles in the meantime. But he's my son. And I was told that eventually, if I kept doing the right thing, that, I would be put in a position where this would happen, and so that's exactly what happened, everything that I was told would happen did in fact happen. So I just had to continue pursuing the fight and pursuing, what the ultimate goal was. And at that point in time, as hard as it was, I had to step back from the situation in order to move ahead.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot in what you just said, because I think there's a lot of people out here who are going through these things, and they're part of what we call a movement. But the real issue that I'm seeing a lot of times is there's a lot of people who get so distracted, they get so they go through those pains, those growing pains, if you like to call it, where they're pushing and pushing and pushing so hard that honestly they get to a point to where they burn out and they want to give up. And that's where we tell people, hey, look, you got to keep doing what you've been doing. You have to be patient. You have to persevere through the bad times. And a lot of the times we always say, look, this movement is not instant karma. It's karma. And sometimes that karma takes a little bit of time to come around. Sometimes it takes 10 years to come around. But eventually karma does come around for us all. And if you've done good things, the good things will come back. If you've done bad things, the bad things will come back. That's just the way things work. Life has that cycle to it.
Right.
And I applaud you for doing what you did and in getting yourself sober, taking care of yourself, making sure you had a place to stay, making sure everything was in place so that way when this happened, you were ready for it. Because there are a lot of people out there that I see, especially a lot of young ladies who go through this movement who have had their child taken from them or they've lost custody in some way, shape, or form, and they don't understand. They want to come on some of the shows that we do and they want to say, well, I need custody of my kid back. Can you help me? Blah, 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 blah. And the first thing we ask, do you have a place for these children to go?
Right.
Why would you
You know,
contact me for that and want my help if you have no place for this child in the first place? And I applaud you for doing that and taking care of yourself and getting that into work first.
I appreciate that. I think something that we also need to realize too is it gratification for us to have our kids in our lives, or is it what's best for them?
Yes.
And that is the ultimate goal right there, is what is best for my child? Is it to be with me? Or, you know, am I the best person to care for my child? And that's a really hard thing to accept, you know, is that, you know, I may not be in a position where I'm in the best place to take care of my child. You know, maybe somebody would be better off taking care of my child, because I have to take my pride and my ego out of the equation, because we're talking about a human who's on his own path or his or her own path in life. You know, so if I'm not the best influence for them or can be the best person to give them an opportunity to succeed in life, then I have no reason to try and even fight for that child.
Exactly.
Well, Jay, wow. First of all, I applaud you, because it takes balls, excuse my language, to be able to recognize that. But you know what the wonderful part of this is you see, this wasn't a man who used that as an excuse to shirk things and just, this is a man that was enlightened enough, even during his hardest struggles, to say, I'm not the best influence. What did he do? Where is he now, folks? Where is he now? Who does he have in his life now? And to be able to, in that moment, Sammy the Bull, to be able to say in that moment, I am not healthy for my child right now, but I'm going to be in the future. And to be able to recognize that, because that's, I think, a big issue, Jay, because we know with the drug epidemic in this world running rampant, you rarely see somebody, even someone who's nodding out, that will say, I'm not good for my child right now. I need to fix myself. Applaud you, because to be able to do that, and again, not to just do that and walk away, to do that and actually do it and say, you know what, now I am. Now I'm a wonderful influence, because, and that's where people have to get to if you don't think you are. And you have to always keep the faith, Jay and Sammy, because I see it a lot. The pain, I can feel it. Where mothers and fathers, some days they're way up, and other days they just want to give up. So I think you're a good story to see why you should.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No,
go ahead. Okay. A little story to go along with that is I have a friend of mine who lost her kids because of her alcoholism. And believe it or not, as a single father, taking care of my son and starting the process on my movie, when we first got this started a little over a year and a half ago, I was granted custody of her two kids in the state of California, because at that point in time, I was the best option to care for those kids. I was basically like a family member to them. It was my son's best friend and his little sister. They were at the time 9 and 11 years old. And so for the state of California to look at a single father who's working his ass off and doing all of these things, for the state of California to look at me and say, you are the best option to take care of these kids. Can you and will you do this? Was a really big thing for me. Unfortunately, it did only last for a couple of months because I fell under some difficulty, financial difficulties, and I did have to surrender the kids back to the state. But at the time, it really made me feel good that I had the opportunity to be an influence on these other kids' lives and what show them a little bit of love and compassion and what can be.
Right. Right. And I think that's a ultimate goal here. And I think it's good justification for you as well. I mean, to show that how far you've come through this. And not everybody comes this far through things. And it's amazing to see that you've come through it.
Well, Jay,
yeah, go ahead.
if I could quickly, a quick story to that. Even for short periods of time, the influence and the impact you can make on someone is remarkable. I actually lived with a friend of mine's parents. It was a friend of mine. He had a brother who passed away, and not long after that, I was over there hanging out with him, which I did often. And his parents, I was much younger. This was quite a couple decades ago. Said, hey, I was in college at the time. They said, we know you're paying for a dorm. If you want, you're more than welcome to move in here. We have plenty of room. And I was really blown away with their kindness, because I was on my own with it all. And so I ended up doing it. And I lived with these people. I'll say their names. Their names are Nita and Don Gilman for, I believe it was over a year. And it was probably one of the most wonderful years of my life, one of the most influential, positive years of my life. They gave me some massive family structure, unconditional love with nothing expected. Because they believed in me. They believed in my heart. They believed in my talent. I had numerous conversations, hours and hours and hours with Nita Gilman and with Don, hung out with them. And they gave me a family structure that, quite candidly, I didn't have to that point. A healthy sort of a structure where you were empowered, you were talked to positively, you were loved, it was honest. It wasn't always sunshine and rainbows, but at that time, they really gave me a parental influence that obviously, as you hear me right now, has impacted me and will for my entire life. Showed me how to be in a lot of ways, how to treat people, how to have that structure, how to love, how to have a normal life. It's a huge impact. So Sammy, even for that short time, I'm quite sure you made quite an impact yourself. Jay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of people that go through these issues and these problems with the family court, and not every foster parent, not every person who takes on a child for a period of time is one of these CASA case workers who's abusive or anything. There are some really good foster cares out there. There are some really good case workers. There are some really good foster families out there. So I don't want to, it's like anything else, where we have some people who say, well, my lawyer was a piece of crap, so all lawyers are pieces of crap. My judge was a piece of crap, so all judges are pieces of crap. We generalize far too often. And I think it's good that we see people who do make positive impacts on people's lives, especially children, because that's why we do what we do. It is for children and the future of our children. And that's why we've named the network this, is because that is what is important. And I think a lot of what you said earlier really drives home into the fact that we put ourselves in, and we put ourselves in these situations where we're in these custody battles, and we think that we're the best for our children because that's what we want. And it's not necessarily what our children need. Our children need a good, positive upbringing, good, positive environment. And if you are not happy with you, how can you make your child happy? It doesn't work that way.
Jay.
Well, and at the same time, they can't fill the void that you're missing.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, bud.
Jay, did you take a fire pill tonight? You're on fire tonight, brother. I tell you what, some of the people that have made the biggest impact actually are none of them are blood related. They're all people, including my stepfather, who had no obligation, honestly, especially in later years. And most of the people that have made wonderful impacts in my life didn't have that. And you see that, you know why? Because it's pure. So my point to this is, too, we talk about this a lot, and Sammy, you had brought up about ego, and Jay, we talked about the egoic traits we all have. every one of us have. But you have to recognize, am I this reaction, or what I want, am I doing it for the right reasons? Am I reacting out of jealousy, anger, whatever those sort of traits are? And if you can recognize them and you say, okay, I'm reacting this way. Jay and I, say we're in an argument. Am I coming at Jay because I'm mad at something else? Am I doing this just to hurt him? Am I going to say this just because I'm trying to dig it, which is easy to do? Or when you look and say, if that's why I'm doing it, you don't do it, especially with someone you care about. You can recognize it. We all go there, but if you can recognize those traits again and be selfless and say, okay, let's do this for the right reason and not out of any other reason because you want to prove a point or because of jealousy or anger, whatever those are. Do it out of love, out of genuine love, because that's the way you'll win. And Jay, you talked about karma. Again, fire pill, brother. Talked about karma earlier. And about sometimes it's, again, you said karma, not instant karma. Again, brilliant, because that's true. And you have to have faith because, Jay, we talk about it. You're not always going to see that karma and that beauty come to fruition the way you want it, that theatrical way you want it. What you have to do is keep loving and living from your heart and doing right. And that karma takes out its own trash. It really does. When you're doing things authentically, everything else falls into place around you. Let everyone else be a shitball. Yep. Let everyone else be a shitball and miserable. You keep doing your thing, stand in your ground, and you're going to keep succeeding. And throw away those ego traits, all that bullshit, and focus, Jay.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing we wanted to get back into here, because I know that we talked a little bit about the addictions and the things that you've overcome, as well as the custody. What made you choose the horror genre of all genres to really get?
Honestly, out of the 7 scripts that I have in my head, the reason I chose this film is because it's the easiest to do. It requires the lowest budget. It requires the lowest amount of locations, the lowest amount of actors. And so when I looked at, what films I had and the ideas that I had, which one could be.
Looks like we're breaking up a little with him. Maybe we've got some
the easiest.
There he goes.
There we go. Yeah, it looks like we might be breaking up with you a little bit, Sam. I'm not sure what's going on, but there might be some weather.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sam, if you're there. Well, Jay, one way or the other, he has a very litigious frozen pose.
Yeah.
It's looking very good. So
I figured for my past, the commercials and
we caught him for a minute.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get that squared away, Jay. But I can tell you, in saying this, when we get Sammy back on, I can tell you the horror genre, which, as you know, Jay, I have a huge affinity for that whole.
Oh, it's like we may have lost him. Hopefully, he'll dial back in here.
He'll come back in. I can tell you right now, it's not a for me, it's not a stretch or a mystery as to why certain people get into that genre. I can tell you right now, when you know what Sammy's experienced, and I speak for myself, for me, on a personal note, people wonder too, all those Friday the 13th movies, all those 80s horror flicks, for a lot of us, back in the 80s when we were being abused, Jason was our hero. People don't understand that. Jason Voorhees was someone who took no shit, who was avenging his mother's death, who was avenging his death.
All right, I'm back.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
Not a problem. Well, we broke up on that question, so we'll go right back to it. What is it that made you choose the horror genre there?
Well, again, what I was saying was that, this is the easiest one for me to put together as far as budgeting, timeline, and everything else. And so really that was the ultimate deciding factor. Not everything I have planned out is a horror film. So I do have a couple of dramas. I do have a couple of comedies. And I do have a real life action movie based on my dad's life. And doing this stuff from, the 70s nostalgia, the 80s nostalgia, working in the industry and all that kind of stuff. So, I figured everything that I have, this is going to be the easiest one to put together for for my debut as a director, writer, producer, special effects, grip, gaff, and all that other stuff that I'm doing. So
Exactly. I think that's a lot of where a lot of people, different, directors, producers, writers seem to start, because you can do a low budget horror movie and it not cost you millions of dollars. Whereas, if you were to do some kind of action packed movie, we're talking special effects and all these other things, that starts to get really, really pricey. Yeah, absolutely.
The great thing, if I could, Jay, too, about horror, and I can tell you this, I implore people to go out and watch Sammy's work, because you can do a lot on it's all about vision, and Sam's got a great eye. So I can tell you, and what I was getting to earlier, and I don't want to speak for Sammy, I can tell you for a lot of horror fanatics like myself, the horror genre was an escape and away for a lot of us to
Lost him again. Go ahead.
I blame Jay. The horror genre was an outlet for a lot of us, as opposed to actually going out and taking out those aggressions when we were having issues in our lives. For a lot of people, and I see it in a lot of the horror groups I'm in. Some people say you're crazy, but a lot of times it was very therapeutic, believe me, and still is. That's why a lot of us still have that sort of affinity for it. So when what you see what Sammy has gone through, and there he is again.
Yep.
Jay did that. We're gonna have to give him credit for getting it back.
I'm getting the blame here, Sam.
Right.
Hey, it's not your guys' fault, man. I don't know what happened. My connection keeps going in and out. I don't know if it's the storms, location, who knows.
Yeah. Sammy, you gotta learn, Sammy. You blame Jay. You never say that.
I get the blame for all of it. Well, see, that's how things work. See, Sam, because if something goes wrong with your film, you always blame the person who's behind the camera.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I'm doing it all, so I'm pretty much fucked.
Exactly. Whose responsibility was it? Oh shit! Never mind.
Yep.
Right.
Before Jay rudely cut you off, Sam, you can talk to you. And I was talking about the affinity that a lot of us have that have gone through tough times and abuse when we were younger, the reasons for that, and the fact that for a lot of us, it was a therapeutic outlet, quite frankly. And a lot of people understand that. You and I have talked about that personally. A lot of times it kept a lot of us from bashing someone's head in with a Louisville Slugger, quite frankly. It was an outlet. And people get scared of that, but a lot of times it very much helps and still does. It's an outlet to get a lot of that pain out, a lot of those visions out. Go ahead.
I think for me, it's, I think, I really dove into the psychology to put this stuff together for this film. Being a horror fan myself, I was tired of seeing the same thing over and over and over and over again. I wanted to see something new. And so the best way for me to see something new is to create something new. That's the way my mind works. And so, when I really dove into the psychology behind this project, when I was writing it. So for me, it was about not only creating something new, but given the right circumstances, everybody has that carnal instinct to act out violently under the right circumstances. Somebody takes your kids, the first thing you think of, your immediate attention goes to hurting that person. You're in a car accident, you're in a rush, you get coffee spilled all over your suit, whatever the circumstances are that push you to that point, everybody has a breaking point where they're capable of doing it. And so that's kind of what I wanted to show with this film, is that everybody has the ability. I just happen to do it a little bit differently.
Right. And I think for you, obviously, the outlet is to not necessarily act out the terror; it's to write down the terror as a movie flick. Because that is kind of the outlet where writers and producers and directors go to, as opposed to a boxer. A boxer will go to the gym and punch on the punching bag. It's the different outlet per person, and I think that's a great constructive way to do it. Obviously.
Well, the one thing, if I could quickly, Sammy, is the one thing, and I've seen some of this Normal Terror. Well, I don't think we've put it out. I don't know if we've actually put out all your movies, Sammy, but we will. But my point to this, when I first connected with Sammy, he was sending me a lot of his work. The first one I saw, see, some people it's just like talent for sports. You can practice and practice and practice, but you got to have some talent. And I can tell you, in watching Sammy's work, he's one of those rare people that can actually make you feel his work. You can actually almost smell the sweat and the fear. You can feel the tension. And that's something you can't teach. That's something directors either have a vision for, and actors have a vision for, or they don't in a lot of ways. And when I watched it, I quickly lost myself in that movie, and it was just a clip. And that's very legitimate. And I got to hang on to this guy. This guy's got something here. He's got a vision and a talent. And he goes for, when you speak to Sammy too, off away from that everything, he's such a soft-spoken, great, accommodating man, and that's what's going to keep him going forward. He's very, extremely humble, Jay.
Yeah, and I'll say this: I did go check out the clip just before we came on. Actually, it's out there on YouTube, Normal Terror. And if you get a chance, go out there and check it out. It's amazing because to me, it's slightly different because when I look at some of the older, flicks like The Bone Collector and some of those old kind of flicks, okay, well, what made this person become this bone collector? And that's where you're seeing in these flicks is what was the breaking point to make these things happen. And that is kind of in the whole mindset, the whole mind hunter kind of genre to say, okay, what would happen if you sat down and interviewed a serial killer? What would go in the mindset? What was their breaking point to become who they became? And a lot of this is right there in that film. Yeah. Yeah,
the psychology behind mine is that I'm not actually giving away why he does what he does in this first film. And that's what makes my film a little bit different, is that it's from the serial killer point of view before he's caught. So you're getting a glimpse into his life and how he is and what led, what you're seeing is I'm not showing what led up to it. I'm just showing the repercussions of that breaking point afterwards. And I think that's something that's never been done before that I've seen, and going back to what Bud had said, as far as me having a different feel and a different vision for my film, I'm doing something that a lot of people say is not very smart. And I get a lot of flack from it from a lot of directors and writers and producers. I'm getting a lot of flack for it because 98% of my film is unscripted. It's all improv. And the reason I want to do that is because I want that organic feel. I want that natural reaction. The actors are going through this for the first time, and I want to capture that fear of what's going to happen. I want that realism to come in. And I'm doing the same thing with the scenes with my son and I. We're talking and just literally capturing our talk, but because I'm directing and I wrote it and I have the vision in my head as well as starring in it, I can drive the conversation and the dialogue any direction I feel is right, at the time. And I think that's what's being captured on the film, and why it has that very organic, natural feel to it.
Right. Go ahead,
Jay, for people that aren't familiar, or they might be familiar, without seeing it, though, somewhat, and I think Jay would agree, a little Rob Zombie-esque without all the chaos as much. It's the lighting and everything and the cinematography, but it's definitely very original. So I guess that's the closest I would, if you're looking for a comparison, but they're really
right.
It's incredible. But I will say this too. You've got a lot of things on the burner right now, and so again, I encourage people to go out and check out your work. You're on IMDb. Was it
IMDb? Yeah.
IMDb. I always get that confused. So you're on there, and you're doing a lot of different workouts. So I encourage you to check that out.
I am on IMDb. I'm also up on myindieproductions.com. I have an artist profile on there. They're a huge supporter of independent filmmakers and artists of all different type of genres and, and that kind of thing. So they're a great platform. They've been amazing in helping us promote. Horror with Sir Sturdy was my first interview, my first podcast, a brother of mine, Aaron Sturdivant. And now I have a podcast of my own coming out on the Brain Dead Network called Sacrificial Terror. Plus all the acting I'm doing and, trying to get this film finished up. We are looking for the last little bit of budget to get this thing done and out by Halloween. I definitely am. I guess the best place to reach me would probably be on Instagram at normal_terror_ the movie, or on Facebook using the @symbol New Style Gore Films.
New Style Gore Films. Yep.
Go check
And
those
that's
out.
yeah.
Go ahead.
That's
go ahead.
that's my production page, Sacrificial Pond Productions LLC, which is my production company, and we are currently, our website is published, but it's still under construction right now, so don't hold me to that right now. But www.sacrificialpondproductions.com is up and running currently.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Well, it reminds me. See, Sammy had talked to me. First of all, I knew Jay, you would dig that whole organic script thing.
Oh yeah, I dig that.
It was brilliant. And I'll say this too. Right when you were saying that, and back then when you had mentioned it, remind me. I think of, and some directors will do that in snippets. They'll go just for the effect. They won't say certain things. We know. I thought right away in 1984, Friday the 13th, the final chapter, part 4, when Ted White bursts through the window and grabs Corey Feldman next to Kimberly Beckett. They didn't tell Corey that Ted was coming through. So when you look at that scene, that's what Sammy's going to capture through the whole scene, because Corey Feldman, as mentioned this, was absolutely terrified because he didn't see it coming. And the terror on his face it translated. So that's the effect that Sammy's going to put the whole thing. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, I think that, and also if you look at a different genre, a master of his work during his time in comedy was Robin Williams, and almost 95% of his stuff was unscripted because he just kept going off and they just filmed it. Right. So just amazing, and that's where you see the talent of the actor come through.
Right. Well, and that was one of the things that I really wanted was, I think, going to visual effects and CGI and all this other stuff has really taken away from the actors being able to perform. So I don't have any visual effects in my movie. Everything that we're doing is practical effects. So
you'll never find any CGI out there better than Tom Savini's work, you'll never find it. And that's
absolutely.
And it's an art form. And it translates a lot better. I mean, even if you look at any fans of even the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, if you look at the 84, when Freddy comes through that wall I think it was $15 it cost, as compared to the millions for the CGI that really looked generic in the 2010 remake. So I think there's nothing to be said for that vision, actual just getting your hands dirty.
Yeah,
well,
actually,
for me, it's more out of a necessity because I don't have the fucking budget. So I mean, I'm creating what I need to create in order to get this done. But would you rather be terrified of a tennis ball right here, or would you rather be terrified of of a creature or blood or something else that that is real, that you're there, you're seeing it?
Right. And I know one thing that actually that I've heard, because I have a family who has had family history with some of the famous wrestlers around. And I'll share this little tidbit and secret from you. But what they call biting. Basically, what it started from was the wrestlers bleeding, but they bleed from the mouth or wherever. And that started, what they would do is they would take blood from themselves and they would insert it into a condom and wrap the condom up and put it in their mouth, and they bite down on it, and the blood would come about, and that's
Mhm.
how they started doing things, and it made it look very, very realistic. Now we
Right.
have some of those sugar blood things and going on, and I
Mhm.
don't think it makes it look as realistic
Right.
as well. But I think that obviously, I think some of that is being used in Hollywood now, the biting technique, because it was so successful in way back in the early days of wrestling when they
Right.
used to do that. So great
Mhm.
stuff.
Well, as
Yeah, go ahead.
Sammy mentioned, Jay, if I could, Sammy's got quite the range. He's not one dimensional at all.
Oh,
And
yeah.
as you mentioned, Sammy, you've got a role that you're doing, and you're a coach, I believe.
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah, if you could elaborate on that, because that's not a horror
Oh, yeah.
sort of situation.
Yeah, that's a film called Undrafted by it was written and being directed by a great gentleman by the name of Prince Obini. And I know I'm probably butchering his last name. I'm sorry. I apologize to you right now. I'm doing my best. I don't know. But no, he's a great guy. He's another independent filmmaker. This is a SAG film. But it's called Undrafted. And basically I play the coach of a future NBA draft pick. The main character comes over from the Congo to seek a better life, and play for the NBA. And this is about me mentoring him and him coming up through the ranks and becoming a professional athlete, signing with the NBA. While my character isn't one of the main characters on the, in the movie, I think it's a very pivotal, role for me, being able to play somebody in that genre and that character, and takes me out of my comfort zone, because I like to express myself and be different characters. The characters that I portrayed so far, I've played a leader of a surf gang. I've played a California hillbilly. I've played a detective. I've played a lot of different types of characters. So, for me to be able to enrich myself and push myself into creating a role, like this was pretty awesome for me.
Well, that's great, because I mean there's going to be a lot of people wanting to watch that kind of a film, obviously, with an NBA and how it's so hot right now. And you've had the NFL draft, and everybody's really
Right.
getting into the whole draft genre here, because
Right.
so supportive of their teams. I mean, some are so into it that they'll have little pools and rallies of it. I've even run into quite a few with the NFL draft, where they've done podcasts on just the NFL draft.
Right.
Jay, don't let him fool you. Jay is excited about Dub Bears. He's excited about.
Oh yeah, I'm
Yeah.
always excited.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. I'm a Green Bay Packer fan myself. So
Oh
you know.
Lord,
I'm a
oh
Patriots
Lord.
fan, so I just have to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm Pats fan.
Awesome, yeah, and I think it's a good thing, because I mean it shows the versatility in your range, where you can go from anything from a horror film all the way up to a drama or a comedy, or
Right.
even an NFL draft type or
Right.
NBA draft type movie.
Well, and it's funny that Bud was mentioning it earlier, as far as the clown, the film that I just recently did that was terrifying, because that's actually a family movie. It's a kid's movie. It's basically a kid's version of Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Oh yeah.
And yes, while the actual characters themselves looked really creepy, it was very Three Stooges type character behavior on set. So it was, yeah,
Definitely.
yeah,
was,
absolutely.
I'm sure in context, sure.
But in context, it was very Three Stooges, bouncing around, laughing, joking. We had a huge pie fight. So it was, that kind of stuff, chasing around an imaginary head kind of thing, bumping into each other. And it's, it was very, very campy, very, very goofy stuff. So, it's funny that I've had a lot of people tell me that it was absolutely terrifying, but then when you put it in context of what it's actually going to look like in the film, I think is great.
Well, I'm sure it's gonna be, and I'll tell you this, Jay and I, we've got some big things coming in the future. We're going to announce coming up. There's some big things, including, I know we're all going to be getting together in Normal, Illinois, but I'll say this.
Oh, yeah.
Sammy, you've got some huge things coming up too, and first of all, again, out of context, it looks pretty shocking. But I think that you touch on it too. You have quite the range, as I mentioned. I think it's important too. I think it's great that you like to challenge yourself like that. I think it's important you don't fall into certain ruts of typecasting, so to speak. So awesome stuff, Jay.
Oh yeah, definitely. And we want to definitely thank you for coming on and spending so much time with us. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that may want to contact you or get involved or maybe even support what you're doing out there, even financially. So where can they contact you again? So that way we can make sure we get that out there.
Absolutely. Let me go through a list of everything I'm working on real quick so that everybody has kind of a vision of what all I'm doing right now. I'm making this special effects prosthetics for a movie called Evil Lurks out of Chicago, Illinois, run by my friend Aaron Hawkins. He's a great guy. They actually just started production, so they're moving along, and I've got to get his prosthetic shipped out to him pretty soon. But then I have a series in Louisiana out of what the hell is it? New Orleans, called Winter Haven. I'm making the special effects masks for the killers on that show, and might possibly have a role in that episodic show as well. That one's written and directed by my friend Jack Saint. Phenomenal guy, great cast characters, great episodes. He recently released the first episode, and it's just absolutely phenomenal. And then I have Normal Terror, of course, which we are still in production. We're looking for the last little bit of our budget to get this thing finished up and get it in post and get it out by Halloween. And then I have The Butcher, written by Michael Montsaus. And that is a cannibalistic horror film in which it was in post, but we do have to do a couple of pickup shoots for that film. It's going to be changed around a little bit due to some technical difficulties. So we're going to be shooting that in June, and then getting that thing finished up and getting that out the door this year as well.
Right, Sam?
Right, absolutely. And then and my son was also in that one as well with me. And then we have Undrafted, which is where I play Coach Rodney. My son was a kid, Nathan, in that film as well. And then which we talked about a little bit. And then I also Cross Wars 3 with Danny Trejo. I was a miscellaneous henchman in that film. Got to do my own stunts working with Tommy Premiau and Larry Layfield pulled me into that project. It was just a background henchman, but that was a lot of fun, and that movie's in post-production right now and getting ready to come out soon as well. So, and then again, I have the podcast coming up. We're going to be recording, I believe, this weekend, and it'll probably drop sometime next week. So we're going to record 1 or 2 episodes and then get those dropped out, so that way we don't fall behind. Right. And that's of course Sacrificial Terror podcast with my co-host Zombie Barbie. And then that's on the Brain Dead Network. And then let's see, you can reach me on Facebook, either Sam I Am Mason or on our production page, Sacrificial Pawn Productions, at New Style Gore Films. You can reach me on Instagram at normal_terror_ the movie. Or you can reach me on Twitter at Real Sam Mason. And let's see, anybody else I need to give a shout out to that I can think of? Nah, I can't think of one right at the moment.
Well,
So,
you know, if you need a couple extra actors, just let us know.
well,
But
when I get ready to do my next film, I will definitely be be casting a lot for that, because we're not actually doing Normal Terror 2 next. We're actually going to be shooting a film that is currently untitled for the general public because I can't give it away yet. But it's basically going to be a sci-fi horror film similar to 13 Ghosts. But it's
Ooh.
going to be in steampunk fashion on a train. So
Wow. Now that's different. That is definitely different. That's good.
so hey, I like thinking outside the box. So, and that one's going to have a much bigger budget because we are unfortunately going to have some visual effects in that one.
Obviously, yeah.
There
Good
you
stuff.
go.
Go ahead, bud.
Sammy, yeah, if I could,
Yes.
before you go, brother, we said beforehand this was going to be fun, and it
Oh,
sure
yeah.
as heck was. I appreciate you coming on more than you know, brother. I look forward to giving you a hug soon when we meet.
Definitely.
And a family that slays together stays together, brother. We're family. You're a brother.
You know it.
Thank you for coming on. I am looking forward to joining your podcast soon as a guest. I'm definitely going to come on, and I got to shoot the breeze about some horror. I can get some of that out. But in all seriousness, I wish you guys the best. I know you're going to succeed. It's not a maybe or a whatever. It's a you know it. We know it. Thank you again for taking the time, Sammy. You're an awesome guy. And
Absolutely.
I know we'll be talking just after the show's done, I'm quite sure. So
Yeah.
I love you, brother.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I want to thank you very much. But before you go, our tag
Yes.
team partner who is out always has people come on and say in their most enthusiastic voice, rev it up. So can you do that for us?
Rev it up!
All right. That was definitely better than John Schneider.
Jay, I just got outdone. I'm so happy to see it. Awesome job, Sammy. Thank you, brother.
Thank you so
Hey,
much.
you guys,
We
I appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much for the love and support. You guys have a great one, man, and we'll be talking real soon.
All right. Amazing stuff. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Much love, brother.
All right. So definitely Sam, I am Mason there. Great stuff.
Yeah, Sammy the man, Sammy the bull. He can go on all night. That was great. He's an awesome guy. He was excited, Jay, to come on. He has so much going on. I can tell you on a personal level, this is someone who deserves it. The hell that he experienced, and again, I always say that, right, Joe? What he experienced, not what he went through, because it sounds victimish.
Mhm.
What he experienced, again, like things that you experience that either they shape you, they make you, or break you. And I can tell you, in knowing some of the more intimate details, this guy deserves it. And he's talented, and he's all heart. And he's just a great guy. One of those guys that you go, man, you love seeing it. And to see his smile and to feel, you can feel the energy, Jay. And at the end of the show, you can see some of his range. He can go from real quiet to blah, just like that. And we love it. We love it. I love Sammy. Great show. Great job.
Yeah, just amazing stuff. And we have a few little housekeeping things here to let you guys know about. We have been in contact with another show that usually airs on Tuesday nights as well, that does more of a parental alienation aspect. And that show is called Custody Matters, with Danica Joan and Wendy Perry. And we have been in quite good discussions with them on possibly coming on board the future of our children's video network. That's still in the works, still working out just a few details. But it looks like that is definitely possibly going to happen here in the near future. And what they probably may do, if that's the case, is to move their show to Wednesday night, either that or tape on a Tuesday and air on a Wednesday, in order to accommodate those needs. But what we're trying to do is set up the network into specific areas that maybe you don't necessarily like The Watchmen, maybe you don't necessarily like Far From Normal or whatever it may be, or you want to listen to some parental alienation aspects, and you want to hear from a couple of young ladies. That's what we're trying to accommodate here, is to accommodate each and every person's viewpoint on what they would like to see, what they want to get involved in. But overall, it would be encompassed in the future of our children's video network. So we think that it's a great aspect to get out there. So we have had mutual discussions, mutual contacts, and we will keep working on that in the future and bringing that out.
Yeah, well, Jay, yeah, if I could. Wonderful. Again, great points again, Jay. This was the whole purpose. Number one, anyone that knows Danica and Wendy, and we've been fortunate. We've had Wendy on as a guest. And I can tell you, anyone that knows these two ladies, what they bring in terms of their heart and their education and class, and what we talked about with them privately and what we've discussed is just what Jay said. We want to be able to cover all the angles for people. And we've talked in jest with Yaya, and we've said it off the show and on the show. Oh, the black guy, the white guy. I can give you certain viewpoints, but I can't give you the viewpoint from a black man. I can't give you the viewpoint from a female. I can't do that. But so we're trying to cover all angles because, again, as Jay said, you might watch certain shows and just not like certain people. There's certain people you're just not going to like. You're going to look at my face and want to punch it. You're going to look at Jay, or you might be really drawn to Jay or drawn to me or drawn to whoever. My point is, when we have people like this, and their show, I can assure you, is different, but it brings the same amount of passion. Theirs is a platform I think some other people might enjoy more, may enjoy less, may enjoy more. So the point is, we get it so everybody within the movement or that has some sort of equality issue, empowerment issue, can come to one place and get the best of the best. And these two ladies, there's no denying, they're two of the best of the best. They're great ladies. And they do great work. And again, to get them on board with us, Jay says as he said, we have some details. We've talked to them privately as we do, and we will continue to. And we're hoping that works out. I'm thinking that it will.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good possibility, folks.
So yeah, definitely a very good possibility. And there could be possibilities of other shows joining as well. The main goal that we're looking at, though, is how we've talked about our show, how we've talked about the Watchmen. Okay, if DSS situations go away, and it probably is not going to happen in our lifetime, but if it was, okay, if we resolve the family court issues and those went away, okay, and probably, again, not going to happen in our lifetime, but if it does, that we still have and are going to have issues in the future with parental alienation aspects. That's just going to be there. So it also gives us that avenue, that genre to turn to, just like genres and film genres that we were just talking about. You have horror films, comedy, action, dramas, all those different aspects in a film. Well, you have different aspects to the movement as well. You've got DSS situation, CPS, you've got foster families, you've got all of these different things. Now, the other thing bringing this to you is the future of our children's video network and doing the Far From Normal radio show. The Far From Normal radio show has become somewhat of the all-star show. So it could be very well possible that we have a fill-in one night and Wendy Perry comes on. It could be, that we have Danica Jones come in and fill in one night if we have particular issues that we really feel like it would be in our benefit to have a woman and a woman's aspect on. Because I think that you need to hear from some of the ladies out here on what they feel. And that's what we're going to bring to you with the Far From Normal radio show. It's going to be the all-star show. And that's where we'll have different people come on, fill in when we have some people out and things like that. But we're going to continue to bring you some of these great people out there that are like Sam Mason out here, who are doing amazing work, but they've gone through the system. They've gone through the same things that you've gone through. They've experienced the same pains that you've gone through. Why not bring them in and have them experience so that when they go out, they can say, hey, I was on this podcast with the Far From Normal radio show. These guys are great and blah, 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 blah. And they talk about these things. Oh, well, I've experienced those things too with other people in Hollywood, and they can come on. And the whole point behind this is to, and we've said this in the past, well, why are you reaching out to celebrities? Why are you doing this? Because the press comes with those people. Unfortunately for us, the press doesn't come with us. We have to reach out to the press. With them, the press is already there. Let's move them in.
Yeah, and we've also talked about one of the jobs too. We want to entertain. We want people to laugh every now and again. We want them to smile. We want them to think. We want them to internalize. We want them to process. There's a lot of emotions we wish to bring out of you with doing these. And again, as Jay said, that's why the different angles and different hosts and potential hosts in the future to cover all those bases, because there's certain things we can sympathize with, right, Jay? But we can't always empathize. And what right. The goal is to get everybody in so that can happen and everybody can relate and continue to move forward. And again, as you said, Sammy's one of them. Because again, every story, as Jay said, is the same, but it is different, as we've said too before. Every situation is different. So someone might say, oh, you know what? My situation is very similar to Sammy. Then they get up because of that. Well, he did it, I can do it. Look at all, or they say, well, I want to get into movies too. And my situation is the same. I didn't know that you could go from A to B. I wonder how he did it. And then they fill in the blanks, and then they too can become empowered and move forward and succeed, Jay.
Exactly. And what I want also for people to understand is it is not impossible to contact these people. It is not impossible to have a friendship with these people. It's not impossible, let me tell you. You know how a lot of the times we've gotten some of the amazing guests that we've gotten on the show that probably other people have not gotten? We asked.
Very genuinely too. Very genuinely. Hey, and also you've got to be prepared. I honestly, we haven't been, and this is, I'll say this not so humbly, but humbly, we haven't been turned down by too many people. And in terms of being a guest, even actors. And one of the great things to do with that is people can tell when you're authentic. There's certain things too. Again, it's a feeling, it's a knowing. So people there's a comfort level. And again, with those thank yous after the show, there's a lot to be said for that. We talked about that last week because we genuinely care. We keep it. I don't think there's many guests that we haven't maintained contact with out of the 2.5 years or more now of shows we've been doing. We've maintained, and there's a reason for that. That's how you do it. As we said with Sammy tonight, Sammy and I talked about privately. It's all about networking. It's all about those connections, that one person that you might have not have known this morning that you know right now. That's the key. That's what it's about.
100%. And I will say this also as well. We have had our first contribution in sponsorship, and that came from Cher Lagaris, who will be sponsoring us for next month. So thank you very much, Cher. We greatly appreciate it. And we are also out there looking for corporate sponsorships. Our corporate sponsorships per month are $49.99. If you'd like to sponsor us for an entire year, it would be $599.99. And what we would basically do is we would advertise for you. We'd give you a 2 to 3 minute spot on each and every one of our shows that we produce out there. And that was also another thing that we impressed upon Danica and Wendy is the corporate sponsorship deals, because that basically will help pay for the services that we do for right now, and may also help us to free up our own personal money, because we fully intend on building a website and what we talked about is the 2 to 3 minute videos that Randy will do and some others will do, and we will try and get some attorneys on board to do these 2 to 3 minute videos that can help you out in your cases or tell you where you're at. And
Yeah,
then you will
definitely.
also see all of our shows on that website as well. So you can go to a show that you easily want to see and go click on it as well. Yep, bud.
I want to say quickly too, and Jay gave a quick overview. For details, anybody interested, go ahead and contact the Far From Home Radio Show. We'll give you a synopsis of exactly how it breaks down and how it works. So feel free to email if interested. We'll give you a breakdown.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And the contributions as well. If you want to do that, if you really want to sponsor the show for a month, want to sponsor it for a year, whatever it may be. If you have a corporation or you run a business and you'd like to sponsor the show, definitely let us know. What we will probably do is set up a video montage. We can even do it with non-copywritten music, and we will play that each and every single show that we've got, so to make it easier on everybody. But we will give you the free advertising for, sponsoring us for that period of time. And I think it's a great win-win for you, because you get to reach in between 3 to 5K at least listeners a week with our shows. And I think that's like, yeah, I mean, that's worth it alone, definitely. But the other thing that we're going to do also is put out gear. So you could be looking for Far From Normal Radio Show t-shirts, bumper stickers, hats, all that good stuff out there in the future. And all the proceeds that we do from those will also go to funding the next year of our service. So all of that's going right back into what we do to keep it going each and every single week that we're on. And I think it's a fantastic way to do this, is to get corporate sponsorship first, and then have the show end up paying for itself out of the merchandise for future years. And
Absolutely.
That's what we fully intend to do.
Yeah, and what I was saying, Jay, too, those views we were talking about on Facebook alone, we're funneled into a lot of different platforms. We're simulcast in some cases, and I know when there's a lot of people to watch on the replay. So syndication too we have plans for that in the future for different networks syndicating our show. There's a lot going on right now. So again, in saying that, the people that are emailing, if we're not getting back to you, you're not being ignored. It's a good problem to have, that we have a lot of stuff going on, but that doesn't mean that you're not important and that your story isn't important.
Yes.
So keep it coming.
Yeah, definitely keep them coming. We will definitely get back to you. It's just going to take us a certain amount of time. And it could be that you possibly send myself or Bud a message. Hey, would like to be on your show, whatever. What we may do is start giving these things to our team members so that they can contact you. So that way we can disperse that throughout our team. Who's doing a fantastic job behind the scenes. They share the shows. They help us vet people that come on the shows. They just do some amazing work behind the scenes. We love them, appreciate them for all that they do. The other thing that we did out of just randomness when we talked about some of these things, that our thoughts and our goals and what we wanted to do with Wendy and Danica was to have a rally go on in Normal, Illinois. And we kind of alluded to that because in 2020, those who are familiar with the iconic symbol of the Far From Normal Radio Show, the theater there in Normal, Illinois, that we've adjusted the sign and had written permission to do, we are looking to rent out that facility for a weekend in 2020, and there's also a couple of hotels behind that. We hope to also, because the Normal Theater, I believe, holds about 200, 250 people. If we have more than that, we will rent out the conference center right next to it, their hotel, and have an overflow. And we fully plan. There's 2 hotels that are huge right there. Food, accommodations, all those different things are right there. Very easy to get to.
Jay, it's incredible. It's incredible. And this is definitely going to happen. I want to just preempt and preface by thanking the Normal Theater. I know that they've been very gracious already with certain things that they've said to us, and the support even right now that they've shown. It's a wonderful thing. And again, as Jay said, there's a lot of accommodations in that area. we fully expect and know it's going to go beautifully. If it doesn't, you all know what to do.
Blame Jay.
There you go.
All right. All right. So now we get to the fully depressing part of our show for this evening. Now I'm speaking as if I am Tyrion Lannister, since he's no longer on the air.
Well, you sound good. You sound proper.
All right. Well, let's go on over to Bud Vino for our shout outs this evening.
Oh, yes, yo, my brother from another mother. As always, I love you, brother. J Money Moss, May 21st, 2019, Tuesday, coming up on 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. First of all, as always, my brother from another, thank you, pal. I love you. It's been a wonderful week. It's been a very trying few weeks for the team. Also, have to give a shout out to Neil Shelton and who's that other guy? I know there's one other guy, Jay, that we have that comes on and hosts. Oh, the Watchman, rev it up, Mr. Randy Davis. That heart. Oh boy, don't be still because it's still beating. Randy called me the other night, Jay. I gotta say this quickly. 2 nights ago at midnight. You guys ready to do a show? It's midnight. You guys he's going already. And I was impressed. This guy, we're excited he's going to be back when he's nice and healthy. We're lucky that Melissa's there to keep him under wraps. He is excited. He's happy. He has a new lease. It's really had us all look in the mirror as a team in terms of our overall health physically. Again, we're getting there, all of us physically, mentally. Randy is going to be back soon and better than ever. He has a purpose. You all have a purpose out there, ladies and gentlemen. And saying that to my biggest, bestest out there, Carter, I love you. My little asbestos Mason man, my assistant. I'll be seeing you later. And to my wife, baby, oh my goodness, she's off tomorrow. Uh-oh. Could be a late night tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Oh boy. To Diana Goggins out there, I will be calling you, Diana. I have to call you. I have a lot of phone calls to return, emails and things like that. And that is, again, a good problem to have. And lastly, but that doesn't mean least, Sammy Mason. Sam, I am the man. Sammy, the bull. Thanks for coming on, Sammy. We wish you continued success. Thanks for coming on and blowing the doors off the show. We love you. Keep pushing. To everybody out there that's down, you're down, but you're not out. Jay, it's not over till you say it's over. Money Moss. And I ain't heard a bell, but I have heard a.
He got a cougar. and speaking of cougars, it is a little bit, and I've said this, it looks a little bit weird to me when I see middle-aged women that wear leopard outfits. Anyway. Anyway, good stuff. Sam, I am. Great job. Oh, wow. And I told him I wore my best impersonation of Freddy Krueger tonight. I don't know if I did that or not.
You did. I can see
you got it all.
And you know what the great thing is? You do have the green ring that's around your picture with all the red. So, and again, the reason that the red and green is brought together in Freddy's sweatshirt because it's the most conflicting colors for your eyes to kind of put together. It's the most disturbing colors together. So again, you're disturbing tonight, Jay. It was perfect for the show. Wonderful job, Jay. Awesome stuff tonight. I say this each and every single week, but it seems just like it just keeps getting better and better and better. Honestly, because there's so many great guests that we have on. Some of the stories that we've brought to you have been, especially lately, have been very, very deep. Very, very emotional. So we thought it was good to bring you a more uplifting and more celebrity viewpointed show this evening. But we've had some amazing guests just out of the movement itself. But we've had some amazing guests on like Wendy Rorden, Patricia Mee Thompson. We've had Prentice Powell, Rob Schneider. I mean, John Schneider. I said Rob Schneider. Did I say Rob Schneider? Yeah, Rob soon. That's just preemptive thinking. Great subject.
Well, you never know. We could have the Sandman on next week. You never know. You never know who's. That's the good thing is you never know who's going to show up on the Far From Normal radio show. It could be anybody.
So far from normal. It's so far from normal. That's what's far from normal about it.
Yep, 100%. And definitely would like to thank Sam Mason for coming on. Just a great job of coming on and speaking about his stuff and what he's got going on and his background and amazing stuff. Then we've got our team behind the scenes, Maria at the helm, doing a fantastic job. Maria, love you, girl. We've got Chris, who just keeps giving us, it seems like Chris just keeps giving us guest after guest after guest. That's amazing behind the scenes.
Jackie was very active.
Yeah.
Very excited.
And some of our newest, Liz Youngman. We've got Tessa Bear Miller, who will be joining us very shortly too. If you would like to be a member of our staff, definitely send us a line at the Far From Normal Radio Show on Facebook.com. We will definitely do our due diligence to get back to you as soon as possible. We do a small little vetting process, and usually that's conducted by our team, who's very good at doing those kind of things. And we make sure that we are putting good quality people, not just good quality people on the team, but we put you in a position that we think that you can thrive in, not just bring you into the team and it is what it is. We say, hey, look, we think that you'll do good in this particular area. This is what we want you to concentrate on. And we're going to be doing more of that, breaking more of that down, because we may go with specific people. Let's say, for instance, if we bring Wendy Perry on and Danica Jones, we may have some people that are specifically designed to help them and promote their show and what they're doing, maybe do some flyers and things like that as well. So we're going to break these things down much more. So if you are definitely interested, let us know. We would love to hear a line from you, or get a line from you. I said, pull a line. I don't know, what one of those things.
Either one, get a line.
Hook, line, and sinker, something like that.
Whatever. It's not about a line.
Something about a line. Anyway, anyway, we're having a fantastic time with doing the shows for you each and every single week. But I'll tell you, your input helps us to design the shows each and every single week. As we've said in the past, over and over and over again, this is your show. We just get blessed to be the hosts of the show each and every single week. So if you've got something that you really want to see on the show, and you say, hey, look, I really want to see such and such on this show, or I want to see you do this, or I want to see you do that, hey, send us a line as well. We'll love to try and accommodate you as much as possible with what you've got, as long as it's within reason. I'm not going to have strippers on a pole or something like that, but everything within reason.
Hey, we'll save that for the Watchmen. Love you, David.
Awesome stuff, but definitely great shout outs. And I want to leave a shout out to all of you viewers who view every single week. Without you guys, we wouldn't do what we do. We would probably be sitting around talking about the NHL somewhere or something like that, doing a podcast about that or something. It's you coming on here and you experiencing what you are and trying to help you guys that we do what we do. And it's all for the future of our children. That's why we do it. So amazing stuff. Love you guys so very much. And as we always say in signing off each and every single week, you are important, you are loved, and you are cared about. God bless and good night.
Chins up, love you guys.
Can you hear the wind that's howling through the concrete trees? Got you praying on your knees. In the face of danger we're all brave, till the gun goes bang, bang, bang. It's a cruel, cruel world, no mercy left, yeah, it's a cruel, cruel world. It'll break your heart, it burn you down, down, down. Don't ever doubt that it's a cruel, cruel world. Oh, it's a cruel, cruel world. Smoke will turn your soul to black if you let it in. So close the door, confess your sins. Oh, when I was younger, it was all roses. Now the dead and gone away. It's a cruel, cruel world. No mercy left, yeah, it's a cruel, cruel world. It'll break your heart and burn you down, down, down. Don't ever doubt that it's a cruel, cruel world. Oh, it's a cruel, cruel world. Oh, can you help me? Oh, can you help me out? Don't know who I can trust right now. Oh, can you help me? Oh, can you help me out? Oh, it's a cruel, cruel world. It's a cruel,